Windows Vista. What memories does that version of Windows conjure up in your mind? For many computer enthusiasts back when it first released in 2007, it brings up bad memories of instability, bloat, and uneasiness with the operating system, and became one of Microsoft's biggest punchlines overnight compared to its predecessor, Windows XP. Much of its publicity for its first year on the market embroiled it in a hailstorm of controversy, with unstable drivers, slow performance compared to XP, and a confusion regarding versions of the OS, among many issues users had. And yet, they were not alone with the frustrations, as Microsoft themselves went through many pains throughout development of the operating system, which took them over 5 years of work, an entire codebase reset, and many delays to finally reach store shelves, and was in fact considered a miracle it even got at all. Many new Windows features made their debut in this operating system, but even more features were dropped along the way. It was clear Vista had some extensive history, evident by the many builds leaking in the years both within and since its troubled development cycle. Today, we are going to take a look at that history unfold all over again. Welcome to the history of Microsoft's biggest blunder, Windows Vista. It was May 2001, and at Microsoft headquarters in Redmond, Washington, Windows XP was just finishing up development, destined to be released within the next few months. And yet, planning for their next version of Windows had already begun within senior members of Microsoft. From these initial meetings came a roadmap: 2 new versions of Windows, the first of which would be known as Longhorn, and would be a minor upgrade from Windows XP, and the second would be Blackcomb, and would be the major upgrade from XP and Longhorn. Both of these came from the same location, as would XP's codename of Whistler, a ski resort in Whistler, British Columbia. Longhorn is named as such as its namesake. The Longhorn Saloon is between Whistler Mountain and Blackcomb Peak. Eventually, Microsoft revealed its plans for the future on July 25, 2001, revealing Longhorn would ship in 2003. For its first year, seldom was seen on the operating system, as Microsoft was focused on XP and its other products that year, eventually hitting its first milestone in December 2001. Within the team, though, ambitions began to rise. Moving into 2002, it was decided that a number of the smaller projects within the company would be merged into Longhorn, resulting in its first delay in April of that year, with Longhorn now set to release in 2004. Ambitious ideas such as new AIs, new graphics architectures, and new peer-to-peer communications were laid out by then Windows Development President Jim Alchin and Microsoft Chairman Bill Gates that spring and summer. Also that summer brought the first leaked build, Build 3663. Now on its second milestone, Longhorn was first seen in action to the world, and it didn't look a whole lot different from XP. Aside from a slightly different login screen, a background of hay barrels, a new silver theme and start icon, and some space indicator bars, not much is different here compared to XP. In time, these changes would come, but it was still the early days of development for the operating system. Development continued into late 2002, where suddenly we reached build 3683, leaked in October 2002, the first full build to be leaked, as the last builds were only leaked in screenshot form. This new build featured the Plex theme, a blue-oriented theme with a new start button, as well as a new out-of-box experience, or OOBE theme. No hay problema. Additionally, an applet based off the Windows Presentation Foundation, or Avalon, is present in the display settings. However, it is very much incomplete, as evident by some of its pages saying it is under construction, much like the operating system itself. Two other new features, the sidebar, which would be present throughout much of its development cycle, and WinFS, an ambitious file system project, would make their debut here, among other features. While it still resembled Windows XP in a big way, it seemed like the once minor upgrade would be a big leap forward for Windows, as a few more builds brought the arrival of the Desktop Composition Engine, or DCE, a new way to render Windows on screen using a computer's GPU. Shaping up to be good stuff so far. Now in 2003, Microsoft started out the year strong with its fourth milestone, Build 4008. Changes by this point indicate that the blue theme that Plex encompassed in Build 3683 ended up becoming the system color, evident by the new background. This also brought a new installation method, the pre-installation environment, or PE, one of the first major deviances from XP. A simple 3-step process was implemented during installation of the operating system, extending into the OOBE. The Explorer was also changed around, now indicating what type of files are highlighted, serving as the beginning of WinFS's ambitions and groundwork, which will be elaborated on later, but suffice to say, it would require major rewrites of core system components. Nonetheless, Microsoft continued, and in late April came another build, 4015. This new build, now on Longhorn's 5th milestone, brought a slew of new features, most prominently libraries, which were known as virtual files that pointed to specific types of content on the hard drive. A file search for things now exists here, aided by WinFS. The taskbar is a little slimmer, notifications are now in a neat little box, and there's a new boot progress bar and welcome screen. Still not a major jump compared to 4008, but it's still a noticeable upgrade. However, the real meat of the operating system's upgrades would be shown off at that year's Windows Hardware Engineering Conference, or WinHEC. In the conference that May, Microsoft gave the first demonstration of the DCE's powers, with minimizing windows being twisted into the taskbar, as well as window transparency. Also revealed would be Longhorn's actual theme, Arrow, originally an acronym for Authentic, Energetic, Reflective Open. Avalon's purpose would be revealed here too, replacing the graphics design interface, as well as the next generation secure computing base, a secure computing environment proposal by Microsoft. While it brought a lot of good news for the operating system, WinHEC 2003 brought another delay for Longhorn. Now it's set to release in early 2005. Cool stuff, but there's one problem. This exciting build never leaked publicly. For the next one of those, people had to wait until build 4029. While there are quirks in this build, memory leaks and lack of sound notably, a strange build string of Longhorn Professional Bay was here, which is Longhorn Professional in Pig Latin, causing some to doubt the validity of its build back in the day. But in fact, this was done deliberately by Microsoft to simplify the naming scheme of builds. Otherwise, not much changed here, as with the next few builds, now in the 6th milestone, up to build 4039. However, this build brought the full capabilities of the desktop window manager, formerly the DCE, glass windows. The Plex theme would not last forever though, as in the next build, 4042, brought a new theme, Slate, a gray theme, with UI changes to match, aside from the installation screen, which is still Plex based. It marked the 7th and ultimately last Milestone build for Longhorn, and introduced a new background image. That being said, this build did not see the light of day until much later, but served as a landmark as Longhorn was now 2 years in development and there wasn't an end in sight for development, though hope was still high within the Windows team, as exemplified by their next major showing of Windows Longhorn on the horizon. Welcome to the Professional Developer Conference 2003, where build 4050 and 4051 would be shown off to the crowd with a vivid feature set, Arrow in its entirety, and the capabilities of Avalon and the new networking technologies of Indigo, together forming the new libraries of WinFX. Capabilities of embedding video and other types of media into various documents and apps were shown off, as would WinFS, a file subsystem using references of relational databases to manage files, allowing for easy sorting of files and contacts, a novel concept for 2003. All totaled, it marked the high point for the Longhorn development cycle at this stage by Windows enthusiasts and was proof that the new operating system was going to be very exciting. At the same time this was happening, Build 4051 would be released to attendees of the conference, which unfortunately had very little of the cool features shown off at PDC 2003, but did feature 2 major additions, IPv6 as part of the new networking stack, and the arrival of a 64-bit version of Windows Longhorn for both AMD's x86-64 processors and Intel's IA64 processors, which has a new setup style and some updated apps for 64-bit, like Internet Explorer 6, though not everything made the jump in this new version, most notably the sidebar. Overall, it seems things would be amazing when Longhorn shipped in 2005 and betas hopefully the year before. Unfortunately for the team, this is when things started to go downhill. 2004 started out innocuous after a quiet period of updates, with a quick networking fix in build 4053. Microsoft was gearing up for their WinHTC 2004 conference, ready to show off Longhorn again in April, which they would do so, bringing out build 4074 at the convention, which introduced a third theme into the mix, Jade. This theme showed off Arrow a fair bit, as well as making Sego UI its default font, though Slate and Luna still stuck around. DWM was shown off extensively with its full range of effects, an animated preview pane known as Aurora, among other cool things, and in fact 4074 would become the most popular leaked build. However, with this build, some of the major features seen in earlier builds would be cut or hidden, and this would be quite an unstable build for its time, even locking up the test system at WinHTC 2004 during Algin's convention. In May, Microsoft announced that virtually all of the NGSCB that it had outlined in 2003 would be dropped from Longhorn due to extensive criticism from security analysts and developers, with only BitLocker making the cut in the end. These major cuts were reflective on just how bad things were behind the scenes at the company. The Windows team was in shambles, losing sight of when Longhorn was even going to come out after 3 years of development. It was clear that they had bitten off more than they can chew when they envisioned the plans in 2002, and as such began cutting away features from the OS with build 4083, which dropped both the sidebar and WinFS. Behind the scenes, Microsoft employees called Longhorn another Cairo, or Cairo.net, a reference to another failed operating system of Microsoft's that never manifested in the 1990s. As a result, a decision was made that a new direction was needed on Longhorn to emphasize code quality and prevent a total death of the project via feature creep. This meant that a full codebase reset was needed, which began work on that behind the scenes around the time of WinHEC, though Microsoft would publicly remain quiet about this through investor meetings and yet another delay in the beta to 2005, though the press started to realize something was deeply wrong. In late August, Microsoft finally admitted part of the dilemma behind the scenes to the press. Longhorn would be delayed to 2006, WinFS would no longer launch with the operating system, and the WinFX library, containing both Avalon and Indigo, would be backported to Windows XP, as well as Windows Server 2003, set for 2006 as well. At Microsoft, though, the original codebase spent its final days working on its death march. Build 4088 marked another new desktop background, and proved to be very unstable. Finally, we reached build 4093, the very last of the pre-reset builds. This build brought back WinFS, as well as bringing in an Avalon-based Windows Movie Maker, but is very much incomplete, as well as bringing back the Avalon display properties dialog all the way back from build 3683 from 2 years ago. Naturally, this build was quite unstable as well, and would serve as the last reminder of the team on how the original version went. This build would be compiled on August 19th, 2004 at around 12:14 p.m. local time. Only 4 hours and 15 minutes later, at 4:29 p.m. local time, all of that work would be gone. All 3 years of it vanished. But now, the codebase was on Windows Server 2003 Service Pack 1, rather than Windows Server 2003 Release Candidate 1 with the original codebase, and a new modus operandi for the team had been set. So now, with a new horizon to work on with the codebase, Microsoft set out to make the best operating system they can by 2006. It would take another long 2 years, but they would finally do it. Continued in part 2, where I cover the post-reset history of Windows Vista.